back, everybody, to yet another episode of Entertainment Evolved. This is going to be an Evolved review. I have none other than this man right here. I have been waiting since the creation of this studio to have this man in here. Welcome back, Joe, from Suplexes and Microphones.
Thank
What's
you.
going on, bro?
I've been waiting just as long.
Yeah, you have. It's the exact same moment in time.
I saw this being built.
You did.
Yes, it's amazing.
You were getting the screenshots like, oh, look what I just got in, you know, putting the shelves together, all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So, before we get into it, man, this is going to be The Last of Us, Episode 8. This is the penultimate episode. This is right before the finale next week, so I'm really glad we could get you squeezed in here. I went to Title Belt Pro over the weekend. We did a very rough we did an episode of the Rough Cut on the way back. Ace and I did, and it's the Rough Cut. So if you're on the audio platforms, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, any of that stuff, you can go listen to that. There's no production value. It's very unfiltered. It is what it is. We recorded in the car, so but we didn't just talk about Title Belt. We kind of ran down what we liked from the show, and then we just kind of like went off the cuff. So it's just two nerds in a car for like 2 hours, just bullshitting and recording it. So.
Next time I'm coming with you, all right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
yeah.
I messed that one up.
Yeah, on the way back, it felt like it was a 10-minute car ride. So
that's the best.
Right, absolutely. So we are going to get into The Last of Us, but we have an item right here on the shelves. Whenever this has kind of become a thing, whenever a guest is going to come on, they see that I have this item from the shelves every week, and they're like, "Oh, what are we going to talk about? What are they going to have for me?" And I actually let Ace pick like right before we recorded when he was on last time for Mandalorian, and he was like, "Let me get the Guardians right here." I was like, "All right," because I knew he could talk about pretty much anything up here except for like some of the Cosmere stuff. But for you, man, you weren't going to get a choice because you're like the only person that I could talk about this particular item with.
That's sad.
Right, it is, and I'm trying to change that. So our discussion about it is we're going to keep it mostly spoiler free because I still have hope that so many of my friends can enjoy what I consider to be the greatest show ever created.
There's not what you consider. That is the greatest show ever created.
It just is. Game of Thrones was trying, man. Those last two seasons, if they had kept the quality where it had been, it may have some competition. But alternate reality, that's not what happened.
Yeah, that's not what happened. Downward spiral.
So talk to me about the Shield, man. What is it about this show that you think is just puts it on another level from everything else?
So for me, I didn't watch it when it debuted. I think it was 2002. I have been in law enforcement and or private security for the past 20 plus years. And someone else in law enforcement said, "What do you mean you haven't watched The Shield?" Is it good? Go watch The Shield, Joe. And so I basically played catch up and probably played catch up with everything but the last season or two.
Gotcha.
And I could burn through it right now if I wanted to because the drama that they create is on another level. And to me, without the Shield, there's no Breaking Bad. There's definitely no Sons of Anarchy.
Right.
A lot of these shows that people later considered, oh, that's the best show on TV right now. This is the catalyst for all that to me.
Yeah, the stuff they were able to get away with on FX, I mean, they were kicking down barriers.
Absolutely.
All the time. Yeah. You look at like 2002 and you think about like what this show could get away with. This would be a gritty show now. I mean, you couldn't put The Shield on like CBS, today.
Right.
And that's 20 years later. So imagine what they were doing on cable at the time.
Yeah. And if I read correctly, this is FX's first original series.
Right.
And so they said, well, let's just, take a bunch of risks.
Yeah.
And it worked. There's not any sort of, well, that season was terrible. It's just constantly outdoing itself. Walton Goggins.
Oh, yeah.
There's
so many people that kind of got their start from that show. He's obviously the number one. It's from an acting perspective, he steals the show. Early on you're just like, man, who is this pissant? And then as you watch it, you're just like, he's the best actor here.
Definitely.
this is kind of where he like molded his craft and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of pretty much every actor in this series that does anything. If there is a low point to it, I would say it's probably the 6th season. But I mean, that's just like maybe it's just not quite up there with the other 6, but it's just like, so it's still tremendous. You know what I mean? It's kind of like this show where it's like the worst episode of Last of Us is, I mean, it's still good TV. It's just not, maybe up there with everything else.
Yeah. I mean, let's not get too carried away comparing Last of Us with the Shield.
Right? Yeah, I'm not doing that.
But I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's so good, and a lot of people, it's the minute you recommend this to them, the first thing they say is, "Was it like The Wire?"
Yep.
Or is it better than The Wire? They want a comparison to The Wire. From my standpoint, again, with my career background, this is a much better show.
Right.
The Wire is more realistic.
Yeah.
So if you wanted something that's a little, I'd say maybe a little grittier, it was on HBO, and a little more true to life with the things that police officers and detectives deal with, the political things and things like that, watch The Wire. But then come back and watch this and enjoy it.
I would definitely recommend watching The Wire first, because if you're like us, when you go from this to The Wire, it's just like, oh my God, are they ever going to get to it? Because this comes right out the gate.
Yes.
Like, if you watch the first episode of this and don't immediately turn on the second one, it may not be for you. Like, with The Wire, though, you got to watch, like, half the first season to even begin to understand. And then when they go into season 2, they're going to launch a whole nother set of ideas at you. Right. So, you're almost like, did I cut on the wrong show? I mean.
And again, that's more like real police work.
Right.
It's just a slow grind.
Yeah. Whereas this is like pedal to the metal from day one. This is the Blu-ray collection. This is the highest quality you can get the show in. And it took them about 10 years to make this because it was originally shot on like hand cams from Best Buy.
Yeah, seasons 1 and 2 were low budget.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and even the later seasons were still like, they kept the hand cams.
There's a lot of shaky shots for sure.
Because they wanted it to feel like gritty and whatnot. Mm-hmm. It's not as bad as like Cops, like, or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, they wanted to keep that kind of gritty feel to it, and I think it worked tremendously.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
And at this point, anyone that says, "Oh, well, let me go watch it," it's going to be dated. You're going to see flip phones and things like that. So just understand that going in. Don't roll your eyes and go, "Oh, I can't relate." Just
it's a 20-year-old TV show at this point.
Exactly.
But tremendous. Greatest show of all time.
Easily.
But let's talk about what I think is one of the best shows on today, The Last of Us, man. So every time I have a guest on for this, we kind of talk about their history with the games. And somebody that I had on before was Lauren, and you're kind of like her in the fact that the show, that like Last of Us, kind of lives and dies with the show for you, right? Yeah,
I've never played the game or read the storyboards for the game or anything like that. Strangely, my son has the game,
right?
But I've never watched him play it or anything like that. So I'm treating this as a standalone show,
right?
And that's how I'm approaching it. And for me, that's different than like going to Marvel movies and things like that, where I know the backstory. So I'm kind of enjoying not being able to go, oh, that's terrible. That's nothing like the source material.
Right.
So
I'm kind of in an interesting spot with this one because I've played the games, but I think they're super overrated, and I'm just like, I don't mind changes. As a matter of fact, we've said this a bunch on the show. We get to season 2, I want all the changes. I want you to basically just throw it out and start over, but we'll see if they do that. However, because Joe hasn't played the games, if you only watch the TV show, you're completely safe here. There'll be no game spoilers at any point during the episode. We're not going to have like a stop where we have to give a spoiler warning or anything like that. So we will only talk about the first 8 episodes of season 1 of Last of Us today. Let's dig into it, man. This episode, right off the rip, we are introduced to David. What was your kind of reaction to this opening scene where he's preaching here?
I guess my first thought was, oh boy, here comes the religious leader that gets inserted into things like this, and he's using that to control people or, manipulate people or whatever it may be. So I thought, okay, here's our villain.
Yeah. It's like they did a good job with this. It's like you got this guy's ticket immediately. You know, you can just instantly. It's like, no, this guy's a shitbag. We don't want anything to do with this guy.
Right. Don't trust this man.
Yeah. It's like, oh, there's the religious guy, because that's one of the things we haven't seen yet. It's like in this kind of apocalyptic kind of scenario, people are going to be more desperate for answers and things like that. And you're going to kind of see these kind of cult-like people come up. We saw it in Kansas City, that something similar to that, but that wasn't like a religious cult. That was more of just like a power play. So we get this guy, and we get James, which is kind of his right-hand guy.
Right.
And James is actually played by Troy Baker, who is the actual mocap and voice actor for Joel in the actual games. So it was kind of cool that they found a role for him in the show. And he's kind of done some interviews and said, he really loves Pedro Pascal's interpretation of the character because he's doing kind of, similar to what, like, the Will Smith playing the genie, right? It's like he's not trying to be Robin Williams. In the same case here, like Pedro Pascal's not here trying to ape Troy Baker when he's playing the role. He's kind of putting his own spin on it, and I think it's really worked.
Yeah, speaking of that, I actually tried to look up today other individuals that were, being dreamcast for the role of Joel.
Yeah.
And the worst one that I saw was Mark Wahlberg.
Oh.
Can you imagine?
Please, no.
I would have cut the show off.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I can't listen to him and be like, my daughter, like 900 times. Like, I can't do it.
Anyway, I just had to insert that because we're talking about, the original voice actor for the game and stuff.
It would have been terrible.
It would have been awful.
It would have been like Transformers 4, but without the robots. And that movie was already terrible with the robots in it.
Yeah.
So it would have been really bad.
Yeah, we don't talk about Transformers.
Just the first 3. That's all there is. or at all for you. Are you
yeah, I'm kind of on a they're all terrible.
They're all terrible. Got it.
I think the first one I watched and I was like, the action's kind of cool, stuff like that. Haven't seen anything like that on the big screen. And after that, I was like, yeah, I'm good.
I liked Optimus and Megatron, but yeah, after that, it just kind of goes downhill.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they are very pretty films, I guess. We can say that. The graphics were really good. So I got to get your opinion on this because there is a subsection of the internet, they're wrong, that hates Bella Ramsey's interpretation of Ellie. As somebody who has not played the games at all, like, how are you feeling about her in that role?
I love her in the role. Again, I got nothing to go off of.
Right.
I think I told you maybe after episode 3, like, she's so annoying, but somehow I care what happens to her. Right. So clearly she's doing her job.
Right. That's the character. I mean.
And I think that's what you told me at the time. That is her.
Yeah.
So, I love her. I think you had to point out to me, I feel so dumb that she was in Game of Thrones. I completely forgot. It's just been so long since I, traumatized myself by watching Game of Thrones that, she was Lady...
Lyanna Mormont.
Mormont, yeah. And was good in that.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I didn't piece it together. It was just a little, I guess, gap in my memory there.
She was always wearing the giant, like, Winterfell, outfit, and speaking in her British accent or whatever, her real accent, and like her American accent is tremendous. So it's crazy to kind of see her in interviews and things talking with her British accent. So.
Yeah. No, she's great.
Yeah, I agree.
And in this episode, just go ahead and hand her some sort of award.
Yeah. This was kind of her second episode where she got to kind of take the spotlight. Like, a lot of it is on Joel in the beginning. And then we get a few episodes where, it's more and more Ellie. So she goes on the hunting trip here, shoots this deer, and it kind of gets away from her. And I think we kind of could see it coming that they were going to run into each other. It's like, oh, we're going to go hunting. She's going to go hunting. All right, she's going to run into these guys. So they find the deer, and she sneaks up on them, gets the drop on them.
Yeah.
What'd you think about this scene? Like, How do you think she handled herself here?
Yeah, I was impressed. And David was impressed as well. But I mean, she controlled the scene, and that's in a situation like that's what you have to do as a teenage girl, 1-on-2. She didn't let them get an inch.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, very impressed with that. She's clearly been watching Joel make his moves.
Right.
But some of that had to be instinctual.
Right. Yeah, I think so. Probably a combination of those two things. He's been with her for a while now at this point, a couple of months, and so
yeah,
he's been, kind of teaching her and everything. So
yeah, very impressed.
Yeah. So this is how kind of, she ends up with the medicine. She gets to jump on them, and David says, hey, I'm not talking in code here. Like, I want you to actually go back and get the medicine. He's like, seriously? And obviously, like, us as the viewer at this point, we don't yet know that the guy that Joel killed was from their little village or whatever. So, obviously, like, when they see the little girl there, clearly their, other members or whatever would have told them what happened, that he stabbed the guy that killed, I can't remember his name.
Alec.
That stabbed Alec. So it's like, yeah, so, okay, now we run across this girl out here hunting by herself and she needs medicine. They've already put it together. She doesn't have a clue at this point. He's like, are you serious right now? You want me to actually go back and get the medicine for him? And clearly, like, David had ulterior motives here, which is pretty clear to everybody, I think, at that point, that there's something up with him. Then, he says, all right, well, it's going to take him a couple hours to go to the village and back. And so David and Ellie kind of go inside and start to have a little chat. What do you think about this whole scene here with them by the fire?
Well, it's clear that David's trying to begin to manipulate.
Of course.
Try and connect with her. Try and show himself as being vulnerable and, different things like that. Just, he's grooming.
Yeah. I mean,
he's grooming.
Textbook, you know. I love the line that she dropped. She was like, you want me to join your hunger club? Nah.
Right. Yeah, that was good. But yeah, it's one of those things where you start to see the creepiness of the guy.
Yeah.
Or at least suspect it.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, back to Alec. In the beginning, Alec's daughter said she wants to bury her dad. Maybe we'll touch on this later, but David says we'll have to wait till spring because the ground is frozen, the snow built up or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think that was really about?
Well, I mean, clearly, like, they're going to feed him to everybody, but,
okay.
But, like, there was, like, some pause there where he kind of, like, looks at James, and he's just like, James looks back at him, and he's like, well, the ground's,
come
frozen.
up with something. Yeah.
Yeah, the ground's frozen. We'll bury him in the spring.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. And, like, at this point in time, we're not, like, the audience is not yet privy to this.
Right. And that's why I said maybe we'll jump into it in a minute. But
when they get back to the village, so they're in the conversation. James comes back. He's got the gun on her, which I was like, yeah, he's going to try something when he comes back. But David straight up was just, like, trying to continue to make her feel safe. He's like, we're going to make good on our word, give her the medicine, drop the gun, let her go. He has no intentions of actually letting her go, but he's going to let her think, okay, well, I ran into some people. They actually did give me this medicine. They weren't that bad, trying to plant the seed.
Maybe.
Once again.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, make her kind of feel safe. He doesn't know that this girl's been trained by Joel, so he's just like, yeah, we got a good shot of kind of manipulating her here. So she leaves with it. They go back, and we get this scene where they're back at the village and they're cooking dinner, and he comes up with the meat and everything, and the lady that's in there, she's like, well, what is it? Which is a weird question, right? If you can see it there, but it's just like, okay, well, it's not that crazy. And he's like, it's venison. I'm like, oh, well, they brought the deer back, and the next thing we know, we see them bringing the deer in the front,
right?
And that's when it was just like, nope, like these guys are cannibals. Now, in the games, it is implied, like, but it is not this heavily, like, dropped. There's quite a few things in this episode where in the game it's just like this person's kind of subtly creepy, but then in the episode they're really creepy, and they kind of double down on, hey, this is what's happening here.
Yeah, I feel like this episode kind of rushed through some things, so I guess to make it fit,
Right.
they had to be heavy-handed with some of the things.
Yeah, and I think it was maybe intentional, right? Because it's like in the game you have hours to spend, and like in the game there's a whole scene where like Ellie and David kind of bond a little more because like some infected attack them, and like you and David, you're playing as Ellie, you and David have to like fend off this like zombie horde kind of deal, like the infected, and so like they spend some more time doing all that, and obviously they cut that out of the show. I love that the show rarely actually uses the infected. When they do use them, it's powerful, but it's not like, oh, this week we're gonna see, like there's not a single one in this episode, and I really love that they're not just like the zombie show of the week. I love that they avoid that.
Yeah, and I wondered if the cold had something to do with
right,
because this is a plant-based type of thing.
Yeah,
so
it probably does. They probably don't do well up here in the winter, which is probably by design from the show, like you said, and I also think too that it's like I'd rather deal with the infected than these crazy motherfuckers any day, right? Like they're just like an animalistic kind of force, whereas like David here is a sick person,
right?
And they're feeding their dead to everybody else, and I thought the dinner scene, man, was really profound because it's like you can tell as he's looking to his kind of like lieutenants, they know, but the everyday like. The average riffraff, the peasants don't know.
Right.
And they're over there gobbling that shit up. And the people who do know what it is, they're just kind of very anxious, just kind of,
right.
I'm starved to death or eat this. And what I thought, the detail that I thought was really like telling in this scene too, is if you look at everybody, they got a little tiny bowl.
Yep.
But David has got him a big old plate.
Right here. Big bowl of food next to David's name.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, it's crystal clear.
Yeah.
What's going on with that? You touched on something there, and The Walking Dead had some sort of, I don't know if it was an ad or a theme or something that said, fight the dead, fear the living.
Right.
Same thing applies here, just you got to be more careful with the living.
Yeah. I think that this show, like just about every theme that Walking Dead tried to pull off, and this is not just me bashing Walking Dead, I think everything they ever tried to pull off, this show's done it better. Whether that's the nature of, this is a short season, it's premium TV, maybe all that combined, but and also this is the second iteration. They've had time to kind of refine it and everything. So, plus all-star cast doesn't hurt either.
Yeah.
So, this guy that played David, Scott Shepherd, he's been in a couple things, but never in like it's usually not like a really major role. He's usually got kind of a minor role in different things. Because I was looking through his IMDb and I didn't see like where he had played a ton of like kind of prominent characters.
Right.
So from the dinner scene we go back to Ellie because we've already seen where David tells James like, okay, we're gonna we'll let her go for now, but it's gonna be easy to track her in the snow, and we'll go back and get her later. She's gonna take us right back to the guy.
Right.
So we go back. Ellie's got the penicillin. And, this is kind of like a loose end from the previous weeks because when he gets stabbed and they go back there and he's like bleeding and everything, I'm like, dude, there's no way that bat was sterile. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nor the needle that she used to sew him up with.
Right.
That she just found in a random drawer in the apocalypse. So it's like, if she just like sews him up and it heals, like, nah, I ain't buying that. And so she gets the penicillin. She's like has no idea what she's doing as far as how to like actually administer it. But she must have done okay because, it seemed to have worked some. And then she's kind of like taking care of Joel. And next thing we know, here they come. They got a posse together and they're kind of walking through the town with rifles. What did you think about this scene? Like, how did you think it was going to go?
As far as when the group approaches where they're hiding?
Yeah.
Well, once again, Ellie handles herself really well. She tells Joel what's happening, gives him a weapon, and then tries to draw him away.
Right.
She figures she's on a horse. She can get him to chase her for a little while. They can't find him. Maybe she can buy him some more time to recover. Maybe, or something like that. She realizes how important he is in keeping him alive. So, she was very tactical about it.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about this, and as soon as I saw this on the episode, I was like, okay. I was like, this is the perfect episode for Joe to be on. How realistic is it when the guy shoots the horse as she's running by? Like, what's the chances?
I mean, he was set up. He was waiting.
Yeah.
And they weren't that far. I mean, depends on how fast that horse is going, but yeah, realistic enough for that range especially.
Okay. Because I'm just like, man, I figure you have to be at least a decent marksman to make that shot.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a rifle. He's already posted up on the tree. He's just waiting as soon as he saw anything, he was going to pull the trigger. So
yeah, and he wasn't really that concerned about if he accidentally shot her.
No,
he could be like, "Well, I was trying to go for the horse." You know?
Yeah. No, I mean, he just wants results.
Right.
Like whoever knock the horse down, knock her down. It's all the same to him.
Yeah. Yeah. And that shit looked like it hurt.
Oh yeah.
She went flying.
She was busted up.
Yeah, that was bad. It was brutal. Not compared to the rest of this episode, but
yeah,
she was not having a good time. So this is where we get David. He says, "All right, he stops them from killing her because they want to kill her.
Right?
They're pissed off. You got a bunch of people starving, and there's nothing to do except sit around and starve to death and freeze to death all day. And on top of that, you got some people that murdered one of your own. It's like, no, we can't have that.
You can have revenge and dinner.
Right. Yeah.
So
right. Yeah. So, and of course they're gonna eat this horse. So he's like, "Y'all drag the horse back," because that's an upgrade to what they've been eating.
A little different flavor there.
Yeah.
Turn on the rec tech.
Oh man. You're gonna run out of pellets. That would suck, man. If you got a rec tech that's like working in the apocalypse and you can't get no pellets for the damn thing.
Yeah, somebody already raided and took them all.
Yeah, exactly. So they went and they dragged the horse back, and he says to the other three, "Go door to door, find this guy." And he's probably thinking, okay, obviously he's hurt. He's too hurt to be out here hunting, so he's probably laid up. 1v3, they got this. We're gonna go back to the village, and he's got what he wants. He's got her.
Right.
And then Joel wakes up and goes to work.
Yeah.
And I think this is really the first time in the show. We got kind of a glimpse of it in that first episode when the guy points the gun at Ellie and he kind of starts having flashbacks to Sarah, and he kind of just goes ballistic on the guy. So we got like a little bit of foreshadowing for this here, but when he wakes up and finds out that Ellie's in danger, he's full no tilt.
Yeah.
I mean, that first guy that he killed, that was one of the creepiest kills ever. Like the way the dude's face was, and like the nature of their little scuffle that they had there, where he stabs him with a knife and he's like holding on to it the whole time.
Yeah.
And then we got the other two guys. Like, you'd rather be the first guy because the two that he captured had a much worse time.
Yeah.
What'd you think about Joel here? Did you think it was were you surprised at just how brutal he was?
Well, I got to get my jab in first.
Okay.
The man's laid up, pretty bad shape.
Right.
You got a teenager giving you a couple of penicillin shots that are probably 20 years old.
Yeah.
Right. It took me back, and I got to do this.
No, yeah, do it.
Batman's in the Lazarus pit. Doctor punches him in the back a couple of times, feed him some saltines. He does some push-ups. He can climb out.
Right.
And it's like, I wish they'd at least showed him crawling or something. He's from laid on his back to being prepared in a dark corner, ready to go, and no issue jabbing this guy up.
Right.
That's my only issue with it.
Explaining that away with adrenaline is pretty far. I mean,
Yeah.
Is it possible? Yes. Plausible? No. Also, Joe here is a huge Dark Knight Rises fan. So
If you can't tell.
if you ever, want to get him anything like memorabilia from that movie or references to that movie is a great choice.
Yeah.
So.
I'll put it on the rec tech with the horse.
This man got a bigger rec tag than I do. Not a
No,
sponsor.
we got the same one, don't we?
No, we do, yeah.
5'9"?
But I mean, if you cooking a horse on yours. Mine don't fit a horse.
Like they told Ellie, tiny little pieces.
That's right, tiny little pieces. Yeah, that's true. Not a sponsor, but they're welcome to.
Yeah, please. But no, after me getting over that little visual of my trauma from watching that movie, I'm down for Joel to do what he's got to do.
Yeah, I think they could have eased into it a little more. Like maybe when she comes back, maybe he's already like sitting up, whatever, not doing well, and then she tells him like whatever, with the knife and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I do feel like they very quickly went from like this man is down and out completely to fast action hero.
Yeah, that's my issue. I mean, supine to superhero in 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
But I mean, like I said, if they just showed him just kind of rolling over and crawling into that dark corner, let me get where they can't see me first. Then I'll make my way to get standing up, and then I'll start getting the blood flowing and waiting on these guys. Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. The interrogation scene was just absolutely brutal, man. And we saw him kind of use that same map trick that he used from the previous episode. He's like, you better point to the same place your buddy points to. The guy points for him. He kills the guy, and the other dude is just losing it, understandably.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not going to tell you shit. He's like, no, don't worry, I believe him.
Yeah.
You're just a loose end at this point.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this Joel is off the rails.
And I think it's all because he knew they had Ellie.
Right, exactly.
He's not going to waste any more time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's his number one concern, and we see that the result of that here. Full tilt is like he told her to leave. She could have left. Like she could have left him for dead. He's bonded with her. We see like him reluctant to admit that to himself in the previous episodes because he has a lot of trauma around his daughter getting killed and everything, and that's like his whole arc, and for him to go from that to her being kidnapped, not absolutely not. He's not going to lose her,
right?
If there's anything he can possibly do about it. From there, we switch to Ellie, who is also not in great shape. She's captive. We get another chat with her and David here, and this time we have we've kind of gone from like the friendly neighborhood pastor David to a little bit more of like how like just demented and sick this dude really is.
Yeah.
What did you think about this conversation between the two of them?
Is this the one where he says he's a shepherd and only has a sheep? He wants another leader with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
That was a great line.
I think he felt like he could entice her with, you're going to have power here.
Right.
Instead of, we got food, we've got shelter. You're going to be in control with me. I think that he thought that would bait her enough to make her go,
Because at this point, she knows the food's bullshit.
Yeah, well, yeah, she saw, what was it, an ear or something?
Yeah.
But see, that was another thing. It was kind of a jump. Like, who's to say they were eating just because you saw body parts over there? Could have been the last prisoner. They just cut him up, or somebody that was dead and they didn't want them getting infected and they're trying to put the body parts. I don't know. It seemed like a little bit of a jump.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they had mentioned, like, how hungry their people were or whatever, but, like, everybody just about in the apocalypse is hungry. Not everybody's going to resort to cannibalism.
Yeah, McDonald's ain't open.
Yeah, especially the shit that he's doing, where it's like, he's not only, not only is he a cannibal in his inner circle, but, like, they're, unbeknownst to the peasants here, like, they don't know that's what they're eating. So, he's, like, tricking them into it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. But Ellie does Ellie things.
Yeah. I loved his speech about the cordyceps too, where he's just like, is the cordyceps evil? No, it's just trying to survive. And then he goes way off the rails, and he's like, it loves or whatever. And I'm just like, all right. If the cannibalism was not enough, and the not so light hints of pedophilia here that we were already getting, and this dude is just he's completely off the rails.
Right.
All right. One, two, three. We've checked all 3 boxes here.
Yeah. I want to see the Bible that guy's reading.
Right. Yeah.
Something ain't adding up for me.
And you're right. Ellie does Ellie things.
Yeah.
She's not having this shit.
Mm-mm.
And she ends up breaking, I think it was only one of his fingers. And probably would have more if he hadn't knocked her out on the bars or whatever. And at this point, he's done. He's like, we're going to eat you. But she was brilliant here when they pull her out of the cage.
Yep.
She bites him.
Yep.
Right off the rip. And then in an excellent line of thinking, she's like, I'm infected.
Mm-hmm.
And so are you. And then she's even got the bite on her arm to prove it. Nobody's ever seen anybody before that's bitten and didn't get taken over by a cordyceps. So, David is trying to rationalize through it out of preservation. Wait a minute. I mean, she would have turned already. We've been here for a day,
Right.
And then, but James is not having it, man. He's like, nah, that shit looks pretty real to me. And that was his undoing because he caught that meat cleaver right to a little like an artery because he was very quick to bleed out.
That was my favorite death.
Oh yeah, when she just that one shot.
Yep.
Yeah, that was good.
She didn't. I mean, he hesitated. She didn't.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, Ellie, she's learned a lot.
Yes.
She has learned a lot.
Now, how about these the gunshots when David's shooting at her, she's running away? How realistic is this? Do you think this is just kind of Hollywood typical gunplay where it's the protagonist can't be shot by bullets, or this guy just doesn't know what he's doing?
Could be some elements. Could be some elements of he doesn't know what he's doing. He's also just watched his right hand man get chopped.
Yeah.
And he's thinking, maybe I'm about to turn. He could be all over the place with it.
That's true.
She's not a big target. She's, a teenage girl. So,
yeah.
I can go with it.
Yeah, I mean, this guy probably hasn't shot a whole lot of running, non-infected people.
Right. Even though they were close. I mean, you'd be surprised.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. I play Call of Duty. I know some of these fools can't aim.
Yeah.
Even with a mouse.
Yeah.
Or a controller.
Yeah, when you get a little recoil, sometimes it gets very interesting.
Yeah, and I also would imagine, that a lot of those guns that they have probably not in the best condition either. I mean, just...
and I've wondered in the game if there are no, AR-15s and more tactical, high-capacity type guns, because these guys are walking around with bolt-action guns and revolvers and stuff half the time.
Well, the Kansas City guys had more advanced stuff. Fedra has all the good stuff.
And that's what I wondered, if the government and or pockets of Fireflies had kind of scooped up all the high-capacity stuff and the tactical stuff.
Pretty much. And it's kind of, he makes a reference to it, too. He's like, there's not a lot of ammo for this thing, Because in the game, they had the big, my brain is just not having it today. The big armored guy, there's probably somebody out here yelling at me right now. But, from I think it's the 5th episode, where he comes up out of the ground and he's got the armor kind of made out of the cordyceps mushrooms or whatever. You actually fight some of those in the game, and they take a lot of bullets.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that one did in the episode, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it lived. They never killed it. And the showrunners were like, no, that's the only one in the game, in the show, rather. That's the only one, and you're not killing it. I guess you could shoot it with a tank or something, or run it over with a tank.
Set it on fire.
If somebody's got a tank, yeah. That being said, then we get this scene where he's chasing after her with the cleaver. She very smartly catches the building on fire. When she grabbed the log and threw it at him, I was like, all right, Ellie, that's dumb. And then it catches the thing on fire, and I'm like, oh, okay.
You think that was intentional?
I think so, because there's that scene, and I watched the episode twice. Right before that, you have that scene. She intentionally runs right to the fire, and you see her kind of look around, and she's like, "Oh, okay, this one's high. Like I can grab this one." And so I think so. I think
Okay.
I didn't catch that on the first viewing though. I thought she was just trying to like throw a stick at him basically, and I was like, "Well, what is that going to do?" But I
Right.
mean, the way that when I watched it again, I think it looks very intentional. The way she grabbed the one that was like the most lit and threw it to try to set the place on fire. Um, and then I love the imagery here because we've got this guy who is basically, he's using religion or whatever. Like he's trying to pose as like this, kind of Christian religious figure or whatever. And then here he is, holding a meat cleaver surrounded by what looks like hell. It's just
Right.
fire everywhere. It was just good imagery.
Yeah. Which they're good at.
Yeah, yeah.
Just, you and I talked about some of the scenery and things. It's just really well done.
Oh, the set design is always tremendous. Then he almost gets a hold of her here. And this was another thing where it's like in the game, it's implied that he, is trying to like push himself on her, but in the show they were like, no, like he is gonna rape Ellie if she does not get away from him. And honestly, like the way that they acted it out and everything, it was terrifying. I mean, and then from there we go to the kill where she gets the meat cleaver and she goes absolutely ballistic.
Yep.
What did you think about all this, man? Like, this was pretty rough for a TV show.
Yeah. It's clear she's always had some built up rage and things like that. Well, she got to release a little bit of that. And almost had more blood on her than the John Moxley match. So, she lit into the dude.
It was just the entrance. She had a John Moxley entrance.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But, yeah, it was, it's one of those things where I read someone when I was looking at some of the stuff to prepare for this, and this is awful. Somebody said, well, she acted the way any other woman would act that's lived.
Right.
I mean, isn't that fucking terrible?
Yeah.
Because they go around expecting to be victims for men like that.
Right.
And when it's time to go, you gotta go all out to make sure you're not a victim.
Right.
I mean, isn't that awful?
It is.
And I hate to, but reading someone type that, they believe that.
Right.
Where they're the only one, which I doubt. But
Right. Right.
it's terrifying, I guess. But
Yeah.
guess what? He earned it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Yeah. I mean, this dude got it coming, and I'll go back to Redbeard's quote from a couple weeks ago. Shout out to Redbeard, and he was like, "If your name ain't Joel or Ellie, and you're on Last of Us, you got about 2 weeks to find another job."
You got one episode, maybe two in you.
Yeah, and that's the case here. And I think really though the scene, the episode stealer here is the scene at the end where they reunite. When he drops that line where he's like, "I got you, baby girl."
Right.
Like, I'm not a dad, and that shit hit me. That messed me up.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how it had to be for like you or somebody else who actually is a father. Like
Right.
seeing like his acting in that scene, when he drops that line, you feel that shit through the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. He was seeing his daughter. That's his daughter now.
Yeah.
That's how he cares for her now. So yeah, it was pretty powerful, and it was simple. It wasn't anything complex.
Right. Yeah. He didn't stop in monologue or
Right.
anything.
He didn't have to explain shit.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, like, when he comes up to her, she's still full panic mode, understandably. And he's just like, "I got you," And if you've ever like been around somebody that you care about that's like had a panic attack or something, like that is like really how it is. It's like at first they may not know even who you are, like
Yeah.
to be able to kind of bring them down out of that. So yeah, it was tremendously well written and acted, I thought.
Yeah.
So once again, I think that this show, I think that this story works better as a show. It's fine as a game, But I think it was always meant for a premium TV format. I think it just works better. That's my opinion anyway. We'll see if I agree later, because in the second game, like, the gameplay is actually a lot better, but the story is, in my opinion, tremendously worse.
Really?
So yeah, we'll see. I told somebody earlier, I said I'm not going to commit to hate watching season 2. This may be the only season of Last of Us that we review. It just kind of depends on how it goes.
So are you under the impression that game 1 is season 1 and season 2 is the second game?
Yes.
Okay.
And now if they change that, and we've talked about this on the show previously, like, there's a time jump between the games, so they absolutely could do a season 2 and just off the rails, like, you know, just fill that time gap in. I would love that. I don't want them to go too far with it, because obviously you don't want to get into like a Game of Thrones situation where they're just going off the cuff. But I think that they could get maybe 4 or 5 seasons out of the show if they did that. Otherwise, I think the viewership is going to fall off so hard in season 2 if they just do game 1, season 2, and then that's it, and it's just done. And I really don't want to see that happen, but it is what it is. Like, it, you know, it's not up to me. So it's however they want to go about it. I would imagine, given the numbers this show does, HBO would probably be going to them going, hey, you know, is there a story we could tell in here rather than just do these 2 seasons? And actually, while we're working on this one, you could change this one and make it not, because it's the Last Jedi of Last of Us. I mean, basically, it's that bad.
Really?
It's terrible. Yeah, it's horrendous. Yeah.
Well, wasn't Bill's story separate from that? Wasn't in the game?
Bill is in the game,
Okay.
and he lives. You find Frank's body in the game.
Okay.
This was so much better done in the show because you actually get to see everything, and the way that it ended was it felt good. Whereas in the show, it's got a different tone and theme to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked it, man. But you got anything else before we score this baby?
No. I mean, I'm just wondering when he goes to get the dark saber. I mean, you got Pedro Pascal, like, taking care of someone, you know, and taking them on a journey, and part of the reason is because they may be the hope for the future, kind of thing. You know?
There's like that meme. By 2040, all TV will be Pedro Pascal escorting a magic child.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I'll watch it. I'll watch it.
Yeah, he's good enough, right?
Yeah, I mean,
for sure.
And that's like a theme in so many shows right now. I mean, we got Geralt of Rivia here. That's The Witcher. I mean, it's Geralt protecting Ciri. I mean, it's, you know, it's just become a common kind of trope. And like, I'm done with it after this one, right? Like, I'm okay with it now, but the next time a show comes out and that's the theme, I might just have to skip over it.
Yeah.
So, what are you ranking this one, man? Out of 10.
This episode?
This episode, yeah.
I'd probably take a point and a half off for just how rushed some of it felt.
Yeah.
It's still well done, but if they had really drug it out to 2 episodes, I think it could have been even more impactful.
Right.
Like, let David really wine and dine her and make her halfway believe. She wasn't buying his crap.
Yeah.
You know?
So you think maybe they stretch it out and then, like, the end of this first episode is like where wakes up and is in captivity?
That'd be great. Or you have the 3 goon gang coming down the stairs and Pedro Pascal is kind of, he's just now getting away, you know, and it's like, oh, and then,
yeah,
I don't know, something that leaves you going, oh, what's about to happen?
Yeah, they could have done a 10 episode first season because they're doing 9. You know, next week's the finale.
Next week's finale, yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, this show always made me go, I can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, that's true.
Every episode.
That's a tall order.
It is. But, you know, I think it could have. The only real storyline so far that they drug into 2 episodes was the
Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
With the boy, you know.
Yeah.
And
damn it, what is his name?
Yeah, I can't remember now.
Yeah, I can't. Henry.
The deaf kid. Yeah.
Yeah. Henry's the older brother. I can't remember the other.
Yeah. But, you know, Everything else has been kind of one shots, and they flowed well. I mean, don't get me wrong, but probably with something like this, I mean, and here's the other thing for me. You've got, I don't know, a mini town of people who have this cult leader, and you know they're doing this and that, and like Ellie wipes them out herself in one episode,
Right.
and it's kind of like, I mean, you know, she had some help. Joel took out those guys, but I'm just saying, like, she took out the leaders, the top two guys.
She took the top two, yeah.
And there's 25 more people sitting there waiting on dinner. You know, I mean, what's going to happen? Will there be, you know, next season or something? Maybe they could work that into an episode. Like, hey, what happened to our leader? We got to find these people that killed him. He was the only one providing for us. We might not have liked him that much, but he fed us.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah.
So what you giving it?
So I'll say I'll give it I'll just take off one I'll give it a 9.
You give it a 9.
9 out of 10.
That's get out of my brain, man, because that's right where I was at. It's like right at 9 out of 10. I agree. Like some of the Joel recovery stuff was a little too and they could have kept it one episode and fixed it. You know, just like they showed him laying there for an episode and a half already. So it's like she comes back, he could maybe be, you know, starting to recover. Maybe he's over on his side, like trying to get up, or he's made it off that bench or whatever, and now he's into the corner or something, you know. Do something other than have him, you know, pull a Undertaker and like, you know, just he's just laid out and then all of a sudden, oh, he's up.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's up.
Another thing that Joe loves, by the way, is the Undertaker. So, you know, if you want to get him an Undertaker-themed gift of some kind, that's always a great choice as well.
Let's not do that.
He's a big fan.
Yeah.
He's having a bad time that Undertaker and Sting never got their match against each other. So
that would be a bathroom match for me.
It really would.
I would.
You'll never hear anyone have that hot of a take about anything other than Bella Ramsey's acting in this show.
Exit stage left. Sting versus Undertaker.
Well, man, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Been a blast. Finally make your studio debut.
Thank you for having me.
You're going to have to come back because we're reviewing every episode of Mandalorian. So I know that's another thing you're passionate about, so we're going to have you back for that.
Sounds good.
I've got my buddy Brendan coming on later on this week. This is going to be his first time on the show at all. We're going to be reviewing episode 2 of season 3. That comes out this Wednesday, so either Wednesday night, Thursday night, somewhere in that range. Be on the lookout for our review of that.
Oh, y'all are doing Mandalorian.
We're doing every episode of Mando.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm pulling double duty here for a long time. So with this one included, that makes in the last 7 days, that is 7 podcast episodes.
Man.
But I am gonna stop now, and it's gonna be 2 a week for the next 3 weeks, and then it's going to go down to 1 a week until Mandalorian's over. And then Ace and I are going to be doing, we have a antagonist episode, and that's going to finish off our season here. So we got quite a bit coming up next week, right around this time. So this is going to hit like Monday night, so I'm hoping that the same thing will happen next week. We are going to have our first 4-person panel here in the studio. I'm gonna have to make that work. We're gonna have to figure that out. But we're gonna have 4 people here. It's gonna be podcast assembled. So I'm gonna have Oz from the Tavern Notice Board. I'm gonna have Lauren from Coffee and Lore. I'm gonna have Ace from the Superhero Homies, and we are gonna recap and finish off The Last of Us season 1. So that's gonna be next week. I'm super excited about that. Joe, once again, check out Suplexes and Microphones on YouTube. It's probably the best place to find all that
That's correct,
stuff.
YouTube.
I know you guys did a great interview with Sean Legacy a couple years ago.
About 2 years.
And we referenced that when he was on the show last week. That's a great one, too. You're actually not on that. I looked it up because I put the link in. And I think it was Nate and I.
You and Nate, yeah.
Yeah,
I think I missed that one.
Which I didn't remember that, happening that way at all. So
yeah, you were filling in for him a couple times, and maybe me just the once. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's the only time that he and I just did an interview together. It was weird. I forgot that even happened. So
yeah.
Well, anyway, that has been The Last of Us episode 8, everybody, and this has been an Involved Review.